Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining Encore Palm Beach County for our monthly Zoom call. We have a very special event today with two retired gentlemen who are going to share their concerns, findings, issues, and joys of retirement. I'm Christine Catoggio, life transition strategist and retirement lifestyle specialist, and an advisory board member of Encore Palm Beach County. And I'm happy to introduce today Mike Lyons. So I just want to open up and give you a thought about the longevity of life. The Stanford Center of Longevity has predicted that post-retirement, we will have, or should have, or could have 20 to 30 years of healthy, active aging. So as you may expect, with an extra 20 or 30 years, retirement is taking on a very different picture than what we may have witnessed from our parents, family, and other people that we know who have retired. It's a very different retirement world. As a matter of fact, one of the big discussions on LinkedIn is changing the word retirement. Do we call it unretirement? What exactly is it going to look like in the coming years? So this is why this is such a concern to so many people, because it is a very different picture and none of us really knows what to expect. So there's a lot of questions, a lot of issues, and a lot of people are really trying to find out everything they can. And of course, throw in the economic times that we're in, and the entire picture of retirement has changed. So these gentlemen are recently retired and have found some answers to some of their concerns. And excuse me, as I still admit. And so they're happy to share with us some of their experiences. And so without further ado, I will be introducing David Lyons and Mike Lyons, and we'll start with you, David. So tell us a little bit about your background and what you were doing and leading up to retirement.
Sure. So I've spent most of my career working in human resources. The past 20 years, I've been with iThink Financial, which is a credit union headquartered out of Delray Beach, Florida. In the past, 6 or 7 years, I also took on marketing, community development, and some other responsibilities. So I was the chief administrative officer for iThink Financial. And I'd worked all my life. So, thinking about retirement was something really new and different. I mean, it's something that we all look forward to. And when I told people that I was going to retire, they would say to me, well, what are you going to do? It's like they're worried about me. And so those were definitely some concerns and some considerations. Obviously, planning financially to be able to retire is something that, working in human resources, I administered 401k plans and pension plans for employees and often gave them advice. Having that choice to be able to retire financially was definitely part of it. I did not retire when I was 65. So that was about 5 years ago, but I did retire at the end of 2022. And some people said, well, you waited too long. Other people says, why don't you keep working? You love your job. I wanted to do things that I couldn't do while I was working full time, travel, spend more time with family, hobbies, some of the community activities that I had gotten started doing when I was working at iThink. And I finally got around to it. It was a consideration for several years. I almost retired 2 years ago, but I was a little bit unsure about, what I was going to do. I'm still a little bit unsure about what I'm going to do, but I'm having fun doing it.
Thank you for sharing that. And I need to mention that David has actually joined Encore Palm Beach County as an advisory board member. So welcome aboard. Mike, how about you? Share a little bit about what you've been up to and what brought you to retirement.
Well, I grew up in Ohio and always interested in science and mathematics, had a kind of a thing for numbers. And One day there was a horrific tornado outbreak in Ohio, and not near my town, but close enough where I could go and look at it. And I did. And I was amazed, shocked, intrigued, just blown away by what I saw. And I said, I've got to learn more about what produced that kind of damage. So that was the start of my interest in meteorology. I grew up in Ohio. I went to Ohio State, and for the last, oh goodness, number of years have worked for TV stations. My first job was in Green Bay, Wisconsin, where I learned a lot about snow and cold. And then I went to Topeka, Kansas, where I learned a lot more about tornadoes. And then I went to Houston, Texas, where we had a very active hurricane period with storms in the Gulf of Mexico. And then my ego got very large and my head got even larger, and it was difficult to get into the house sometimes, but I wanted to go to an even bigger market. Houston was market 10, but that wasn't good enough for me. So I ended up going to Detroit, Michigan, big market, mad station. Anyway, probably the best thing that ever happened to me because it shrank the head, humbled me, brought me back to my roots. And 32 years ago, I went to work here in West Palm at Channel 25 and love what I do. Like David, I'm 68 and a half now, 68 and 3/4. I just retired in December. And I could have kept on working. The station certainly wanted me to. But as I said in my little goodbye message, they were nice enough to bring everyone into the newsroom and let me speak for a few minutes. I said, the reason I delayed retirement is because I love what I do. I love who I work with, and I love who I work for. Excellent company, great management. But in December of 2021, after thinking it over with my family, I decided that when my employment contract expired at the end of 2022, that I would retire. So I wanted to give the station plenty of notice, but also wanted to give me plenty of notice. So I had 18 months to kind of plan my retirement. And toward the end of my retirement, I pitched this idea for a story about retirement coaches. And the folks in the newsroom had heard about life coaches, that kind of thing, but retirement coaches, I said, this is something new. I said, 44 million Americans will retire in 2022. And we talk all about the financial aspects of retirement, but we don't talk anything about what am I going to do when I have all this time on my hand? I think the 18 months of preparation, the interview with Christine, all the Encore information has really kind of crystallized for me what retirement is supposed to be. And I'm glad you're going to get rid of that word because I don't call it retirement. It's like the next stage in my life. Every day, I'm still recognized. Every day, everywhere I go, people say, hey, how's retirement going? And my response, and it's only been 2 months, but my response is always the same. I have a big, broad smile, and I say it's going great. I'm loving it.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, you know, Encore was started because Rosemary Nixon, our founder, had read a book by Mark Friedman called Encore. And when she read the book, she said, well, we need to start one of those here in Palm Beach County. We're ground zero. And so Rosemary, at a well past retirement age, decided that she would start this nonprofit to help people go through exactly that. So she was really on the cusp of this whole shift. And so Mark Friedman does refer to this as the Encore years. And they really are. They're a time of, you know, we have the longevity, we have all this extra time. So what is it that we're going to do with it? So what kind of things, David, did you consider when you were thinking about retirement? I know, financial, we all talk about the financial, that's always number one. So what kind of things were you thinking about? How did you weigh things out?
Well, like Mike, I mean, I really did enjoy my job, and I could have worked as longer if I wanted to. I was certainly welcome to do that. But I was challenged myself. I wanted to know what life was like not being defined by my job and not being consumed by it. Not that that's a bad thing, but, when I would go on vacation, I would be checking emails, I'd be thinking about the next projects. And, the job really took over my life. And I don't know, about 4 years ago, my wife passed away from breast cancer. And I started to think about, mortality, and I would have discussions with friends and family, and we would talk about things like, well, what are some of the things that you'd like to do? And life is short, and how do you want to spend the rest of it? And I wanted to do things. I mean, I wanted to, most recently I got back from Spain walking the Camino, which is something that I'll probably go back and do again. Last week I was out in Colorado skiing, and I'm healthy and I'm able to do those things. And so I want to do those things in retirement. I started playing pickleball 3 times a week, which has become very popular. I joined the gym, but I had a lot of introspective thoughts. I had recently been listening to a Harvard professor at the Forum Club speak about happiness. And in his research, he found that there were basically 4 things that are the kind of basis for being happy in life. And that's family, friends, faith, and work or volunteerism that services others. So those are some of the things that I wanted to get more involved in. And work was kind of getting in the way of that a little bit. So those are some of the considerations. I mean, certainly, it's nice to be able to have a title and the prestige of the job. And today it's kind of awkward because, the first time when you meet somebody, they'll ask you, well, what do you do? And you say, well, I'm retired. And then of course, the next question is, well, what did you do? And that kind of identity is always attached to a person. And so in retirement, I was looking for a different identity. I was looking more inward and things that I wanted to do. So those are definitely some considerations.
And those are great points that you made. And actually, a lot of them I actually speak on as well. And in the coaching world, we try and hit on the holistic part of it. It's everything that you said. It's the faith, the family, your health. And so we try and take in that whole picture, and that's, as we mentioned earlier, that's why this is such a hot button, is because, most people, the picture of retirement is because they keep getting postcards in the mail for a free dinner, and and so they don't get a lot of the other aspects of it until they do have a reason to start thinking about it. And so that's, you hit on some really good points there. And I think a big part of it too is really what a lot of people hesitate to do. And you use the word introspection. And I think that is a big part of it. And I know Mike referenced this in his the video that he did, the interview, and talked about the fact of asking a lot of questions. A lot of people don't really know what they want until they take the time to, or have someone take the time with them to delve a little deeper. And so, Mike, would you like to speak on that?
As I approached retirement, I had a plan in terms of what I wanted to do, not every day, but kind of on a regular basis. And a lot of it involved my hobbies and activities. I've been a member at East Point Country Club in Palm Beach Gardens for about a dozen years, but because of my work schedule, I was lucky if I could play golf once a week. And so I knew when I retired, that would open up an opportunity to play more often. The challenge, though, was when to play, how often to play, and I know this may seem silly, and who to play with. So after some time and working it out. I know, for example, I'm not a morning person. I did the 11 o'clock news for 32 years, and I would get up each morning at about 9 a.m. and I still get up each morning at 9 a.m. and that's just my schedule. So I don't like playing golf in the morning. So I needed to find groups that would play more toward 11 or 12, something like that. Anyway, so I've with everyone knowing I'm retired, I received many invitations to join groups, and it's just been marvelous. It's been incredible how sweet people are and how generous they are. And now I'm playing Wednesday and Friday and Saturday. At the moment, that's enough. That's and I think if I played every day, my body would break down. I mean, but the other thing I'm doing, again, in the past, I would go to the gym almost every day, but because of time constraints, maybe 45 minutes would be max. Now I can spend a lot more time there, and I'm loving that. The fact that I can take the time and do whatever I want to do and explore that has been marvelous. The other thing I'm doing, which I've always wanted to do, is I'm taking piano lessons once a week, and it's Thursday. I have a piano lesson. It's about an hour, and go to a gentleman's house, and he teaches me. He's been very patient, and I can actually play a couple songs. And the other thing that I've discovered, which was kind of by accident, again, my wife is still working and will until the end of the school year, is I've discovered the joys of cooking. And I make dinner for my wife every night. And
Oh, wow.
Last night we made the New York Times app is great, and I searched ground beef last night, and it came up with about 500 recipes, and one was Salisbury steak. Now we think Salisbury steak, we think TV dinner, but this is the original Salisbury steak recipe from James Salisbury, who came up with the recipe, and it was great. So I've got 5 stars every time, and
Great.
and the other thing I do, and some people accuse me of being a 14-year-old boy, is I'm a video gamer guy, and I have a PlayStation, and I have an Xbox, and I have a man cave. And there's some of the games now are so sophisticated they can take hours to finish. And I just finished a game that took me 14 hours to conclude. It's very satisfying, but in my previous life, I never would have been allowed to do anything like that. So
Right.
with all my other responsibilities. So that's just a little bit of what I've been doing. And so far, I mean, that's why I smile and say I'm very happy right now, because I am.
That's great. That's so awesome. And, that's a big part of it too. And even when I work with clients, one of the things that we try and pull out of them are those passions and those dreams that they might have set aside. Because for so many reasons, we all do that. It's for financial or family reasons or whatever. There's a lot of things we're like, yeah, well, that, one day, someday we'll get to it, and never get to do it. And then here they are in retirement and trying to figure out, what do I do next? And it's like, well, what did you like to do when you were a kid? Think about those things, and I know a few people who are taking piano lessons and taking language lessons. And so, there again, since we have this longevity, we really want to be healthy while we are aging. And one of the ways to do that is to stay active and to keep learning and keeping our brain engaged. And so this is all important stuff that you guys are doing. So you guys are going to live a really long time.
That's good.
Hopefully. So what I'd like to ask you both is, since you both came from employment, the organizations that you worked for, what was their thought process on aging? Did you have the opportunity to mentor someone as you were retiring? Were they anxious to see you go so they can move other people up into your roles? David, what's your take on that?
Well, I first of all, I got to tell you that probably about 10 years ago, when I would have conversations with people at work, I kind of stopped referencing things that I did many, many years ago, because they'd look at me and they go like, wow, how old are you? And so I kind of stopped doing that, and I kind of started to stay in the present. But probably about 2 or 3 years before I was going to retire 2 years ago, first off, and I kind of just delayed it and procrastinated. But probably 2 or 3 years ago, I did start to mentor somebody at iThink Financial who I thought had the capability to take over my responsibilities. And actually, the organization is really good that way. We did a lot of internal development, internal promotions, and things like that. And I think that that's one of the reasons that a lot of people liked working there and stayed working there. I mean, I think the average length of service was about 8 or 9 years, which it was pretty good. So I eased into that role, and I actually, for the last 6 months of 2022, I functioned more as a consultant, and I would have weekly meetings, but I was definitely pushing off responsibilities to other people. And so it was a good transition. I'm still involved sort of as a liaison, because one of the things that I think Financial was definitely involved with, and still is a lot of community events and nonprofits and supporting the community. And so I became sort of a liaison with a number of community agencies, and I'm still doing that. And so I'm kind of staying in touch. I mean, obviously, when you spend that much time with a company, you make friends, and while you leave that social environment, hopefully you keep a few of those friends for a long time, or so it was a transition. I mean, I've seen people start to go part-time and ease into retirement that way. So I guess that's sort of what I did from a consulting standpoint, and it made the transition easy for me and easy for the company.
And I think we're going to start seeing a lot more of that with some of the corporations and organizations, because as people retire, they may not have the leadership available to move into that role. So there really needs to be that mentoring and partnering to move those people up into that role. And Mike, I know it was very obvious watching you mentor your replacement there. You want to tell us about that?
Sure. Mentoring has always been a big part of what I do at the station, and pardon me, but basically for the last 25, 30 years, because you have at most television stations, you have folks who've been there a while, like myself at my station, for example. I was there 32 years. Tiffany Kennedy, our anchor, has been there 27 years. Felicia, I think 22 years. Todd's over 10. Chris, who you referenced, my technical replacement, has been there about 10. So, and then we have a bunch of new, younger employees who maybe have 1 or 2 years experience, especially in weather. For example, Brooke Silberang came to our television station 3 years ago, and she had just a couple years experience. So I'd mentored her and mentored Vanessa. Any of the young meteorologists that we had, I was there to help in any way possible, and would offer any kind of advice, especially when it came to the big weather events like a hurricane, for example, hurricane coverage. For many, it was their first time doing that. So before the event, especially this time of year, when the sky is blue and it's 75 degrees outside, there's not much for people at the TV station to do other than say, hey, it's sunny and 75. So what we would do in January, February, and March is we would plan for hurricane season. So we would have meetings. We would work on special graphics. We would review coverage from the past and say, how can we make that better? How can we convey that information more clearly to the viewers so they can make important judgments for them, their family, their business, their home, and so forth. So yeah, mentoring has always been a big part of what we do. And it's one of the things I really loved about working at the station, because again, you had the veterans like us, and then you had all these new people, especially because it's very expensive to live in Palm Beach County. Our news director was very forward thinking and said, all right, I'm going to hire this person right out of college. She or he is very sharp to be a producer. And someone would say, well, they don't have any training. They don't have any experience. And she would say, I'm going to train them my way so that they know how to do it the right way. So we had all these young people, 22, 23 years old, and that is just a great vibe to work in. And in terms of your other question, the station, they wanted me to continue to work there. I'm technically still an employee. I'm an ambassador. We're not sure what that role is yet. It hasn't been clearly defined, but I was so tickled and honored. One of the last meetings we had with management, they said, at some of the HER stations, they have over 30 stations, some of the folks who worked there a long time, who retire, we make them ambassadors and they do special things for the station. Would you be interested? I said, of course, what an honor. Well, I mean, I would be happy to do something like that. So we haven't defined the role yet, but I'm ready. And I joked, I said, I want a sash and I want a hat that says I'm the ambassador. But we're still working that out.
So let me ask you, since you have that kind of longevity of people working that long, are a lot of them or any of them over 50?
Some are, yeah. Some of the anchors are. The anchors I mentioned, Tiffany, Felicia, Todd, are all over 50 years old, yes.
So I'm going to throw something out there to you. Encore does an event called Weatherman Experience. And you may want to learn more about that, because it actually, what we do is we honor those organizations that hire the 50 plus. And so that may be something we might have to put you in touch with Rosemary about. Rosemary? Because if they could be selected for something like that, that would be really awesome, because that is part of our mission is, we're finding work and volunteer opportunities for people 50 plus. And by doing that, we engage the organizations and companies in Palm Beach County and recognize them for hiring the over 50. It's all part of the, fighting ageism. So having people with that longevity it's really a great opportunity for them to get that notice, to get that recognition. So that's great. And so you said a lot of the things about what you want to do, but if you really had to narrow it in, David, how do you plan on staying engaged and productive moving forward? I came across this, I was speaking recently at the Sun Sentinel event, and a lot of people were coming up to me, and I was talking about what I do. And I asked them what their plans were for retirement. They're like, well, I'm going to travel. And I'm like, well, that's great. We all want to travel, but you can't do that 24/7. So what is your plan for staying productive? You mentioned a few things, but, staying more engaged. Yeah, I know you're very involved in volunteering and other things, David, but do you have anything else in your mindset for moving forward, what that could look like? We lost your sound. Oh, let me unmute you. You're muted, David.
I don't know how, not sure how that happened, but
okay.
I'm back.
Okay.
So when I think about accomplishments today, obviously that's different than, when I was at work, and think about being productive. Again, it's more introspective. Obviously, staying active, both in body and mind. So, going to the gym, playing pickleball. I don't get to play golf nearly as much as Mike does, but I would love it. I have in the past quite a bit, but and I got to get out there more. But one of the things that I'm doing too is I am reading books for pleasure, a wide variety, which is something that when I was working, I was always reading industry information and always really focused on that. And I kind of didn't really, I wasn't motivated because I just tired of reading. And I always enjoyed reading, But now I get to read for pleasure, and I look forward to that hour or 2 hours in the afternoon when I get to sit down with a good book. But I'm also just very much more aware of those relationships and the community involvement and just getting off the couch. I'm up relatively early. I probably about 7 o'clock now. I used to get up about 5:30 when I was working, but so it kind of feels good. But I think just being more aware, staying active, engaging with the people that you meet, and I'm involved with several organizations, obviously making plans for travel, but spending more time with family, and I feel very good about that. Again, it's about self-awareness and enjoying life and contributing to other people's lives, I suppose.
That sounds great. But have you ever considered starting something new, like using the talents and abilities that you have and moving into, creating a new adventure?
I have. I've thought about offering, my services in human resources, which I, spent my career doing. I also love to cook. And I have a very dear friend who really loves my recipes, and has encouraged me to commercialize that. And I've kind of really resisted, because to me that would involve too much time, doing other things. So I don't know. I like the ability to be spontaneous with my free time, and that's one of the things that I'm really enjoying.
Awesome. Awesome. Mike, how about you? Have you any long range plans of things that you may want to accomplish or start something new?
Not at the moment. I'm pretty satisfied with where things are at the moment. I know it's only been a couple months. One of the things about the golf is always challenging, and they say that when you retire, your handicap should come down. the first month of golf, that was not the case, but now it's starting to come around. But the golf course, especially during the season, there's lots of activities. There's tournaments. I just finished a 3-day tournament where a partner and myself, we played 5 9-hole matches over 3 days, and it was fun. It was exciting. It was challenging. It was a little nerve-wracking from time to time. We did okay, but it was just the experience of meeting people. Even though I've been there 12 years, I don't know hardly anyone at that club. So now I'm meeting a variety of different people. In terms of traveling, we're going to hold off traveling again until my wife retires, but we're going to be gone in June and July and September on a variety of trips up north and out west. And for me, that is such a luxury. It's something that I would never, ever consider leaving this area during hurricane season. It's not a good idea for your chief meteorologist to be walking down Trafalgar Square in London when there's a hurricane moving toward Palm Beach County. So from June and through the end of October, I never went anywhere. I mean, I would take a vacation, but it'd be a staycation. And so now the idea of getting out of here, when the rains and the heat return sounds great. And so we're going to do something like that as well. And finally, David, if you want to send me some recipes, I would be more than happy to receive them.
So I'll ask this of both of you, because we all have those things, even though you have a whole list of things that are keeping you busy now. Do you have that one day, someday thing that still in the back of your mind that you may want to try or you may, if you get bored, you may decide to try that thing you've always put off. Any ideas of things that you may have forgotten about?
Mhm.
For me, I don't know. I've done a bunch of crazy stuff. I'm pretty happy. One of the things I did do is I decided that Sunday and Monday are kind of like you don't do anything day, and go to the gym. That's about it. And maybe even take Monday off from the gym, not even do that. And just a day to hang out, reflect. One of the things I enjoy doing is sitting on the patio, like at 3 o'clock in the afternoon and, reading my Kindle. And it's very nice. And the other thing I have to mention is, I worked 32 years on the 11 o'clock news, get home at midnight, but you're still juiced. You can't go to sleep. That's why I would get up at 8 or 9. Now I can go to bed at 9:30 or 10 o'clock at night, and it is glorious. It is just incredible.
How about you, David? Any one day, someday?
Well, I would like to get better at some of the things that I'm already doing. I mentioned pickleball, and I only picked it up probably about 4 months ago, and I got my pickleball shoes and my racket, and I am getting better at it, and I'm enjoying the people that I'm meeting doing it. It's I would love to reduce my golf handicap. I guess the one thing that in sort of the back of my mind that I have thought about, and I used to do quite a bit when I was in college, is I used to do ceramics. I used to do on a wheel working with clay, and I would love to do that again. And I look at the adult classes that are being offered at some of the college and high school locations, and they really look intriguing. And just to take the class and to be involved with other people and have discussions about whether it's a book club, a reading class, philosophy, whatever. I think that those things would be really great. So yeah, those are some of the things that I've kind of thought about in the back of my mind, is taking some classes and staying mentally engaged that way. But right now it's really just kind of personal relationships, family, and really just enjoying it. They say that first year that you're retired is sort of like this honeymoon period.
Honeymoon.
Yeah. And that eventually there may come this disillusionment, and maybe a greater need for a more defined purpose. I am not there yet. I'm really enjoying it, but being aware that may be down the road, I think is important to being able to manage it. And so I'm definitely thinking about those things.
And that's a great point that you made too, because it is a honeymoon phase. And yes, you do all the things that you always wanted to do. Like, I can't wait to delve into my box of pictures and get them organized, from 30 years ago. That's like my big project. I don't know what happens after that, but you both seem to have such a good handle on keeping yourself busy and engaged. So I'll start with you, David. What advice would you give someone who's thinking about, planning for, or already retired? What advice would you give them?
Well, one of the things that I've always advised employees and my kids as well is to really start thinking about retirement as early in your career as possible, because when you're younger, you can take advantage of the time value of money, the opportunity to take long-term investment risks that ultimately will pay off when you go to retire. So those are certainly some of the things that I would recommend. And then retirement becomes more of a choice. I definitely know people who are not in a position to retire at this age and have to continue working. And if you decide to continue working, but it's your choice to do that, then it's a much more pleasurable experience. The other thing I would say to people is, diversify your interests before you stop working, so that you're not saying, well, what am I going to do now? It's okay, I'm already kind of involved in some things, and now when you retire, you get to spend more time doing those things. So definitely diversify your interests, and talk to people who have retired. Talk about it. Get feedback and from both your family, friends, and coworkers. That's what I would say.
Great advice. Great advice. Mike, how about you?
Well, I would say, number one, go to your website, right? We have to do that, right?
Thank you.
But seriously, that your information is so helpful, and it's you bring out thoughts that I never would have brought up in the past, and so that's number one. But I would say number two, and what I tell people, and when I they say, "How's retirement?" I say, "Are you retired?" No, I still got some time to go. And I said the only advice I would give you is don't retire until you're sure you want to retire. You don't want to be in a position of regret. I mean, I loved what I did, but I don't miss it at all. I miss my people, and I chat with them, text with them, things like that. And here's something you might find interesting. I don't watch the news anymore. Not because they're all my friends. And if I watch the news, I'm watching the news in a different way. I'm not watching for the news. I'm watching my friend Tiffany or Chris do the weather. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I think part of it is you have to kind of move on from the past. It would be like, if I watched the news, in my mind, it would be like if I was an attorney and I retired, but I kept going back to the law firm every other day just to hang out. It's because I can tell by, what their little quips back and forth, what's going on. And it's like, that's fine, but that's not me anymore. I've moved on. And so that's what I tell people. Make sure that, financially you have to take care of yourself, but from having a happy encore, a happy next stage of your life, you need to have a plan. You need to have a big plan. And the other thing is, and David brought this up, it triggered a thought in my head when he talked about ceramics. I've always been interested in photography, and at the golf club, we have a photography club, and throughout the clubhouse, they put up every month new pictures, whatever the theme might be. And it's like, wow, that's really interesting. I'm intrigued. I'd like to do that. But at the same time, I don't want to do too much too early. You know what I mean? I have to have my Sunday and Monday off, and Tuesdays, this is going on, Wednesday, that kind of thing. I have a plan, but at the same time, I don't want to rush in and do too many things all at once.
Good advice. Good advice. There is a thing called busy syndrome, where you get so caught up in being busy, you forget to take the time to enjoy. And so that's great advice. You both have such great information to share. And if you're open for it, we're going to open the phones to the call here. If anybody has any questions they'd like to ask of Mike and David. Anyone? I don't see anything in the chat, but feel free to unmute yourself.
Well, I'd just like to comment on something that Mike said about not watching the news. I was a news junkie when I was working, and I don't watch the news hardly at all anymore. And I find that has taken a lot of stress away, because I don't have to worry about things that I have no control over.
Right. Good point. Good point.
It's like people ask me all the time, if we're going to play golf, they say, hey, what's weather today? I'll say, I don't know. In the past, I would wake up, I had this whole routine looking at, all these different charts, and, spend 45 minutes doing. Now I look out the window. What's the app say? Okay, let's go.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm using my radar on my phone.
Yeah.
That's all I need.
That's all you need. Yeah.
I know Rosemary's champing at the bit. She has her line open. Rosemary?
Well, I don't want to co-opt anybody else's time who may have questions. So feel free to jump in, folks. But we're here today doing this because Mike expressed an interest in retirement coaching. His staff got in touch with me and Christine. And so we had the TV segment, which, by the way, Mike, we are sharing widely and wildly. It's an important part of our marketing. But you raised the question, and it reminded me of why I started Encore. When I was a financial advisor with Ameriprise, I saw people who were retiring. I was helping them plan financially for their retirement, but I could see they didn't have the vaguest idea of what that was going to look like. And I realized that a lot of people do not have that ability to envision the future. Do you think that more people need help in planning for retirement? And do you think employers should do more to help people plan for retirement, other than the financial part, which, you know, they are obligated to do? But my experience, and this goes back to 1998, I didn't see very many employers doing much other than bringing in Fidelity and so forth. They did not touch on the non-financial aspects of retirement, which is a huge arena. Christine spends time on that, and I did the same. And that's one of the reasons why I started my coaching practice, and that led to creating Encore. So here we are today. What do you think about that? Do you think employers should do more to prepare people for the non-financial aspects of retirement?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think the fact that we did the story on the television station, I think it opened up a few eyes. The Hearst Corporation, which owns WPBF, is a huge company, very diversified. They have tons of 50,000 employees, something like that. And they're very proactive in just about every area. But I think that's an area that needs to be addressed, and frankly, isn't being addressed. You know, I think it still is to many respects. And I've seen it at my TV station. Someone retires and hey, here's cake, you know, good luck, you know, don't let the door hit you on the way out, that kind of stuff. And boom, what is that person going to do? And so I think it is incumbent upon companies to, I mean, the company I work for, great company, pension, you know, 401k, all that other stuff, they're taking care of me financially, but they should also take care of every aspect of the next stage in my life. So definitely companies need to start thinking about that.
Thank you. Appreciate hearing that. In fact, just before I went on this event, I got a call from a company that wants me to do a segment on retirement coaching and planning. Evidently, you know, it takes a long time for an idea to become widely accepted. And I think that's the arena that we're in now. And both David knows about our Wisdom and Experience Awards event coming up in September. But that's what we're trying to do, is recognize age-friendly employers. And that would include those who go the extra step, not only in hiring and keeping and training mature workers, but preparing them for retirement.
Yeah, I think that in my experience, that focusing on work-life balance is really important, and retirement certainly is part of that work-life balance. I will tell you that talking to folks who are in their 30s is not the same conversation and not the same vision and not the same values that talking to somebody who is, you know, say over 50 or 60 years old, has a completely different perspective. And you want to kind of shake them and say, hey, look longer range, but they don't always do that. So, but the idea of work-life balance, I think retirement planning absolutely fits into that.
Thank you.
I
I
see
also
Dorothy has a
just
question.
noticed that Edward Gruvman is going to have to go up, but he is volunteering and mentoring young people in junior achievement. If
Mhm.
he's still there, I just want to give him kudos for that. Back in high school, I was a junior achiever. And guess what? At 83, I'm still a junior achiever.
It looks like Dorothy has her line open. Dorothy?
I know. I was listening to Mike and I was getting ready to say something and he was going with my same thought in regards to employers and companies. I think the retirement planning is a very good resource to have, and especially right now, because I'm a life coach and I deal with people that are forever, can I just say, screwing up with finances. So I think they need to know the importance of it, so you don't have to depend on anyone but yourself. So it should be a training that's done, and it should be going ongoing, in different cycles for different people and depending on where they are. But I think that's a huge resource that's very much needed in any company, because the company we do the trainings with certain banks and like with Mutual of America and John, with the usual, but it doesn't really give you the full impact of what you're going to face long term.
Right.
So we really need to have that available for people that is really concerned about their life and longevity, about sustaining and maintaining their self-sufficiency. Because a lot of people retire and then they go back to work because they weren't prepared.
Right. Mhm.
I'm still working. I'm at the graceful age of 70 and I'm still working because that's my passion. And then I can't get my husband to stop working because I want to do this at the same time because he's at Seminole and like Mike doing whatever they do. So, so I'm thinking I'm going to be ready within the next couple of years, and I'm trying to train other people to just embrace it, but just come up with the same outcome that we need for people to grow and move forward, but not to train them in my ways. But retirement, being said, retirement is very, very important. I think that is a huge, huge resource that would be helpful for anyone that's growing gracefully younger.
Younger. I'm with you,
And thank
Dorothy.
you, both the Lyons, thank you. And Mike, I stopped watching the news after you left. Thank you so much. Thank you, ladies, Christine.
Thank you,
and
Dorothy.
Rosemary, for presenting this. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our pleasure. Thank you. And I don't see anyone else with any questions. Sharon, I know Sharon's on here. Sharon, would you like to share?
Behavioral scientist. So this whole soft side of retirement really, really matters to me. Last year I did write a book, Fresh Courage in Retirement, Finding Purpose, Essence, and Fulfillment. And I now call myself a spark coach because I want people to start living from their heart, from their spark. And man, we haven't done that since we were teenagers, right? So actually making a course, Discover Your Spark, and change the world from living from your heart, something close to that. But it will be a 90-day course, and I'm looking for people who will beta test it for me. So SharonRolfe.com is my website, and Sharon@effortlessvitality.org is my email if you want to get in touch with me.
And you can find her on LinkedIn. That's how we met.
Yeah, it is.
Thank you for sharing, Sharon. Thank you. And I see no one else. Norman, thank you. Good luck, everyone. Thank you so much. And I thank you, gentlemen, both. Your your comments, your introspection, your advice is all well taken, and we appreciate having you on board. And thank you for joining us today. And Encore thanks you. We hope to see more of both of you. And enjoy your retirement, and we'll be here for you. Encore will be here for any questions or concerns. So thank you all, and thank you, Rosemary, for having us on today. And everyone have a great day. Thank you so much.